Oh boy. There's a lot of people jumping up and down about this WHO treaty thing, aren't they? And really, at the end of the day, it's not going to matter a whole lot of beans. Even if you can convince your politicians not to sign it, it doesn't matter. I can't speak about every other country, but I can certainly speak about Australia. And what I can say in Australia is Australia does have a constitution, and the constitution specifically says you cannot be forced into a medical treatment. It says it in the constitution. Workplace health and safety says you cannot be forced to do things and even coerced to do things by your boss, otherwise that's a breach. These are federal rules. Human rights says you cannot be forced or coerced into medical treatments. We already have all of these protections in Australia. Did that matter? No, it didn't. Companies left, right and centre decided that you needed to be injected. State politicians left, right and centre just said it's a mandate, you've got to do it. Even though mandates and directives and saying compulsory and saying it's a requirement, none of that is law. None of it is law. But people just went along with it. And of course, the moment they go along with it, that's given it tacit approval. Now, the thing is that the larger politicians, or I should say the federal politicians, the ones that really had the voice of the media, none of them stood up and said to the state politicians, you can't do that to your people. This is a breach of our constitution. This is a breach of federal law. You can't do that. They all just stood back and said, no, said nothing. But what they did do was they followed the WHO directives anyway. There was no signing on to those directives, but they just followed them. So do we need to sign on to this new treaty that everybody is scared about? No, it doesn't matter. 197 countries sign on or they don't sign on. It's not going to make any difference. If the politicians don't sign on, they'll just still go ahead with the recommendations of what the WHO says regardless. So whether they get signed on or not, the result's going to be the same. If something like this happens again, the WHO will put out a recommendation and the countries, whether they're signed onto it or not, will go along with it, regardless of what the people want. They've already shown that they're quite happy to trample over all the human rights and everything that we've got, so none of that will make a lick of difference.